This is TWiT.
Remember how we've been complaining on the last few shows about how Microsoft's doing a bunch of things with Edge, especially around making it hard to select other browsers besides Edge if you use Windows 11? Well, they stepped back a little from the cliff last week.
Shocking.
Not as much as we had hoped, by the way.
No.
Yeah, Steve Gibson even reported this yesterday on Security Now.
Yeah.
He was so excited. You can now, there's a one-button default browser.
Well,
It's
in the dev
not a
channel.
one-button default. So
No.
we'll get to that.
It's not
Also, it's in the dev channel only, so that means it may or may not at some point ever become a feature, right? And the way that this was discovered is a little disappointing. Well, it's interesting. Raphael found it in the dev build.
Credit
it wasn't
to
even
Raphael.
called out.
Yeah.
It was not called
they didn't
out
call it
in
out.
the notes. Yep. And then when people talked to Microsoft and they said, "Hey, there's this thing in the build that you guys didn't talk about that makes it look like you're going to make it easier with a button to select other browsers." You're like, "Yeah, we're experimenting on that and seeing based on user feedback, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Yeah, people hate the way you're doing it now, so you're stepping back from the cliff." Okay.
Let's do it.
Does anyone is there anyone on the Leo or Mary Jo? I mean, are either of you running Windows 10 right now? Not Windows 11.
No, I'm on a Windows 11.
I moved both my machines to
because this is something I tested this change today. What I haven't had time to do is compare it to how it works in Windows 11. 10, sorry. 10. What I can tell you is it's not what everyone hoped it was. So, So I'm going to go off the. So what I'm going to have to do is go off the top of my head here. So if you're out there and I'm describing this wrong, sorry, you don't have to correct me. It doesn't matter. I'm going to look it up. And I'm going to write about it. So thinking back to Windows 10, you install Chrome or Firefox or whatever, and one of the first things that browser asks you is, would you like to change this to be your default browser? And you say yes. And then it loads the settings page, which is settings, apps, default apps. And in Windows 10, it has a list of, for some reason, like app types, image program, movie program, web browser, a few others.
Right.
There's a little pop-up that comes up, and it says, we'd really like you to use Edge. Are you sure? Edge is safe and secure and fat, blah, 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 whatever. You say, yeah, I'm sure. I don't care. And then it changes Chrome or Firefox to your default browser for the most part. The one thing I want to test is, I don't think it changes everything, but it is a one-click it's kind of a two-click deal, but it changes most of the major associations to the browser of your choice. I think the one off the top of my head that I believe doesn't change is PDF. But because you've installed a new browser and thus a new application that's possible to use for PDFs, the next time you open a PDF on Windows 10, you'll get that open with dialog, which is like a Windows 8 style dialog, by the way, still in Windows 10. And it says, hey, which application do you want to use? And you can choose an application for just this time, or you can say, make this the permanent choice. And then that will switch to PDF. So there's still a little wiggle room, I guess, is my point.
Yeah. Right.
So in Windows 11, the default version of Windows 11, you install the current version, the shipping version. You install Chrome or Firefox, and it says, hey, would you like to install, or would you like to make this your default browser? And you say yes. And it goes to apps, default apps, but that interface does not have that list of major app types, like whatever I said, pictures, video, web browsers, and a few others. Instead, it lets you search for a file or link type. And then it has a list of applications alphabetically on your computer, and you can set defaults for them. So you have to kind of scroll down.
That's
so you scroll
awful.
Scroll down to Firefox. And then there are a dozen to 15, I'm going to call them file types and protocols. They call them file types and link types, whatever. And this is things like HTML, PDF, SHTML, et cetera, et cetera. Most of them are web documents. Some of them are actually image files like SVG or AVIF and things like that, or maybe that's a video file, whatever. But it has a bunch of them, and you have to go through one at a time. And the first time you change one of them, it says, "Hey, are you sure? Really want you to use Edge?" And you're like, "Yeah, I'm sure." And now you've changed one file type, and you have to manually go through every single one of those. But the tricky bit, and this is the thing I'm not sure of in Windows 10. For example, Windows 10 has like a news and information link on the taskbar, which is basically what the widgets interface in Windows 11. I don't know off the top of my head, but I wouldn't be surprised to discover that still opens in Edge, even if you change all these things. I don't remember. I don't, because I never used it. I don't know. It's possible if you do a start search and choose a web link in Windows 10, even after changing all of these, or changing the default, maybe it still opens an Edge. I'm actually not sure. But what I am sure of is in Windows 11, it absolutely still opens an Edge, and that was the controversy.
Yep.
So Edge Extractor, third-party browsers, I think Brave and Mozilla both implemented workarounds to this so that when you said, I want this to be my default, it changed everything to be your default. And the outrage that occurred after that was Microsoft in a dev build now a couple months ago, probably, or a month or so, implemented a fix, if you will, for this problem of theirs, which is we're not going to let these companies work around this setting.
Right.
We want widgets to open an Edge. We want Start Search to open an Edge. And the reason they gave to the public, which is not the real reason, is for experience. We want them to have the best possible experience. What they really want is for you to access MSN and Bing on the back end. Okay.
Right. And that the change they made with this one button thing doesn't affect that at all in Windows 11, right?
Right. That's part of it.
Right.
So there's two big changes. Or two big things, I guess. When you see a screenshot of a thing that says set as default, you think, oh, it's just like it was in Windows 10, and it's not.
Right.
So if you're in the dev channel on Windows 11 and you install a Chrome or Edge or Chrome or Firefox, and it says, hey, would you like to make this the default? You say, yeah, I would. And it loads exactly the same page that you see today in the stable version of Windows 11. It's the default apps page. So settings, apps, default apps. It still has that thing where you can search at the top, and it still has that list of applications. The difference is when you go to, I'm just doing it now so I can look at it. When you go to Firefox or whatever you installed, there is that button at the top that says set as default. And you think, oh, good, look, they fixed it. It's still multiple steps,
Yeah.
And when you click on it, it says, sure, we'd really like to use Edge. Okay.
Yep. And
you say, I'm sure.
Yep.
Puts a little checkbox next to it, and then you can see what it's associated with. And you know what? It's not associated with that much at all. No. It changes 2 or 3 of the file types. It doesn't change. You still have to go through the list and manually change most of them. I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish of them to Firefox or the browser of your choice. It really doesn't change that much. It basically I've changed things here, so I can't tell for sure, but it changes HTML, it changes HTML.
Yeah.
That might be all of it. It's not too. I took screenshots on a different computer, which is what I was looking for earlier.
What happens if
change
you just
HTTP.
change the HTML and HTML? Is Edge going to still open a lot?
Not a lot. So.
But for some
so
things.
basically, I would say it's the 2 major file types, HTML and HTML, and it's probably almost certainly HTTP and HTTPS. Those are the 2 protocols we call them, right? So that basically means normal web. You click on a link in an email program, it will open in your browser of choice. It doesn't change some of the things we think of as being kind of Internet Explorer now Edge file types like XHTML, XHT. Whatever. But PDF is not included as well. So I don't think that's really, I don't think the PDF situation is much different.
No, I like using Edge for my PDF reader. I don't mind that. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what they're
at least
thinking.
Will get the nice thing there is if you do open a PDF, this I did test. If you open I didn't. I'm sorry. I believe if you open a PDF.
It'll ask you at that point?
It will ask you at that point, I think.
First time you open it.
Yeah, I think so. And then you can set it as the default. But what it's not going to change is that stuff that Microsoft said they were going to block, right? It's not going to change the stuff from Start Search. It's not going to change the stuff from widgets. I guess Cortana might be included in this. So I don't know what the full list is.
Seems like a good compromise because most of the web browsing I'm going to do will work, right?
I agree. Well, I think this let's take it as a win, right? Like they're not going to change everything.
That's all we're going to get.
Okay, so I'm going to call it the top. So it's a step in the right direction. I think this is something they had been planning to do for a while. I don't think this just happened. Yeah. They've always intended to block that stuff in the back end where because they want to use Microsoft services. Okay, fine. Yeah. The issue I have with it, and I'm just thinking of normal people here, is even the Windows 10 interface was a little much in a way, right? Because
it was,
in previous Windows versions, if you were using Chrome or Firefox or whatever, and you said, I want this to be my default browser, you said, yes, that was the end of it. There was no interface to bring up. It just did it. And now, or Windows 10, it brings you to an interface where you actually have to go, yes, nag me. Okay, I still want it. That's fine. This one is actually still a step back from that because there is no main interface in default apps and settings where you say, browser, image program, video program, whatever those choices are. Mm-hmm. You have to scroll through the list, find the app you just installed, remember the name. I know it's not hard, but I mean, you have to know the name of it, and you have to go find it, and you have to set it, and you still get nagged, and then you still have to go through a list of file types and think about. Some of them are weird. It's like, do I want to open an AVIF file with Firefox? I don't even know what that is. Like, what's a WebP file? It's. Do I want to open that?
No, and
if
you don't know, nobody who's a normal user knows.
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
And that's
what I mean.
And that's what they're counting on, right? They're counting on this being confusing, right? They want it to be confusing.
Okay, so WebP is what happens when you save a website. It saves it as a WebP. It's a web package. So, do I want that to open in Firefox, or is that kind of a bundle that I want to open in Edge? I think what Microsoft's trying to do here is let you say, for browsing purposes, I want to choose my browser. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff Edge does, like PDFs,
right.
that should just be for Edge unless you express it otherwise. And that you can do onesie twosie. So this default button is going to do 90% of what you do, right? Or almost 100%.
I think, for basic web browsing, it's going to be fine. And I do think it's important and that's good. But I still... It's still a little underhanded. I really think what they're trying to do is drive Edge usage artificially so they can claim they have some number, some.
It still opens when you open a WebP. That counts.
We're not just using it to install Chrome anymore. We also use it to open PDFs.
Which is kind of what I want to do. No,
I
like, I don't want to install Adobe Reader, so I like it that Edge opens PDFs.
But Firefox and Chrome also open PDFs. Why?
Well, that's true.
When I say I want this to be the default, it didn't say default web browser. It just says default.
Right.
I want it to be the default for anything. It can be the default for.
Yeah.
Are they still blocking what Firefox did?
Yes.
Okay. And then Kev Brewer asks, does the behavior change in Home and Pro? Does it matter?
No, I don't believe so, but I haven't.
No, right.
I actually tested this on ARM, if that matters to anybody. But no, I don't know. I can't imagine it's different.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second because I was thinking about this the other day. Why does Microsoft have to let you use a browser other than Edge? I mean, Windows is their operating system.
Well, there's this little thing called the EU.
Well, Chairman.
No, seriously. No, I'm being serious here because Windows doesn't have a monopoly on operating systems anymore, right?
No, but that's not okay. So first of all, you can define markets in all kinds of different ways.
True. Did get
Windows
in trouble for bundling back in the 90s, right?
I know, but this is a whole new world. Like it's not the dominant operating system anymore, and
but it's not,
they can point to. I feel like
it is the dominant operating system on computers.
On desktop PCs.
When Microsoft got hauled before the DOJ in 1999, Macintosh had 5% market share.
Right.
Do you know what they have today? 8%.
Yeah.
So
I know, but the way people look at market now is operating systems. Like they put phones in there, they put everything together.
I don't. You can define the antitrust regulators can define a market however they wish, and one of those markets is desktop computers, and Microsoft absolutely has a monopoly.
Okay, and I would say since it's their operating system, why can't they say the most used app in their operating system should be ours? And I don't like this, but I could see how they go down this mental rabbit hole and justify doing what they're doing.
They literally were hauled before antitrust, or before the government.
Like 2 decades ago, right?
The United States.
2 decades ago.
The EU, Russia. I mean, because of this exact crime.
2 decades ago.
Nothing has changed.
Maybe, Paul, it's time to push the envelope again.
That's what they're thinking.
Let's just prod them and see what happens.
That's thinking, everybody. This is what they're thinking.
Well, I think what they're thinking is getting towards something. Look, at some point you say personal computing is not just computers. In fact, computers are the smallest percentage of personal computing today because of smartphones mostly, but also tablets and other devices. Yeah, fair enough. But you can also set a default browser on those other platforms. So that precedent was set because of what happened to Microsoft. I mean, if Microsoft, they may be playing this game where maybe they won't notice because they got bigger problems with Google and Facebook and Apple and whatever else. Yeah. Fair enough. But that doesn't mean that what they're doing now is not wrong. And probably is still illegal because you could define that market as, well, you do have, this is the monopoly you do have. It might be the only monopoly, Microsoft.
Yeah. I believe they believe The world has changed, and they're not going to get taken down by any antitrust regulators because of this. I do believe this. I've had people say this to me. Okay. So they think.
Let's just talk about Apple for a second. And this is something Leo will know better than I, because I don't use a Mac every single day. However, my understanding, and based on my limited experience with the Mac, is if I install Chrome or Edge on the Mac, it says, "Do you want to make this default?" You say yes, and that's the end of it. It's the default.
Yeah.
That's right.
Macintosh has 8% market share. They're the company that could get away with that, not Microsoft. Right.
Yeah.
So, but they don't do it.
Like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I would like Microsoft to feel like Edge was such a good browser that it could compete fairly in the market.
There you go.
What they're doing with Edge lately is making it not the best browser.
That's right.
And
by the way,
driving people away from it.
That's right.
That's right. In fact, the argument, until about maybe 6 months ago, you could have made the argument, look, Edge is that thing they said it would be. Google Chrome without the Google tendrils everywhere, without all the tracking. That sounds appealing.
It does.
And
they added shopping.
Load and stuff. Some people look at the features I've complained about they're adding to Edge and said, what's the big deal? I like that stuff.
Yeah.
Or I can remove it if I don't want it. I can disable it. Okay. Fair enough. But the stuff they're doing to make it really difficult for normal people to use the product they chose is user hostile at best, and is probably almost certainly illegal.
I don't think it's illegal, but I think it is user hostile, and I don't think they care.
We're going to find out, I think.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to bring them up for antitrust on this, though? I'm curious, because Edge has – what's Edge's share? No, wait. What's Edge's share of the browser market? Is it like 5% or something?
That's not the issue. Isn't Edge's share? It's Windows share.
Yeah, but that's how they're going to defend it, I feel like.
The EU brought this change to Android. The EU made them have a ballot screen.
Yeah, remember though, the ballot didn't do anything.
You go into the system.
But it was a joke. No one ever did it, right? The browser ballot ended up being a joke.
But no, what do you mean? It's there.
It's there, but no one ever uses it. Like it's.
You have to use it before you use Android.
I just mean it didn't change the share of browsers. It did nothing.
But that's because, by the way, in the perception of the public, Chrome is the best browser.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't change. By the way, if Microsoft was hauled before antitrust courts all over the world and they had to change this and everything changed, and Edge had 90% or 65% to match what Chrome has, usage share on Windows, fine. The populace has spoken, but that's not what they have. They're doing this to increase that usage. That's the illegal part. That's the bundling. That's the
You know what the sad part is for them, not for us, but for them, is they're doing all these things to try to increase usage and meanwhile shooting themselves in the foot. Right. At the same time as they're like trying to lock you in, they're making Edge worse.
Any thinking person apprised of the steps they've taken and the promises they've made to block the workaround would think, okay, this must be a really crappy browser because
they have to force
why
you
would
to
you
use
be forcing it on people?
I know. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.